SpaceX has a single second to launch. About 10 minutes after the launch, the Dragon will reach its preliminary orbit. It will then deploy its solar arrays and begin a series of thruster firings as it heads to the station. The spacecraft is scheduled to arrive on Wednesday, April 4th. We are now about half an hour away from the launch. Let's check in with NASA's Josh Finch and Kennedy's Launch Control Center for some updates on the Falcon 9 rocket and an update on the weather. Josh?
Thank you, Tori, and welcome to those who are joining us for live coverage of SpaceX CRS-14's flight to the International Space Station. I'm located on Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, not far away from the launch site at Space Launch Complex 40, where the Falcon 9 will lift off. The Falcon 9 is a two-staged rocket standing at about 230 feet tall. The rocket's first stage is powered by 9 Merlin engines and fueled by liquid oxygen and rocket-grade kerosene, also called RP-1. After engine ignition, a hold before release system ensures that all engines are verified for full thrust performance before the rocket is released for flight. Then, with a thrust greater than 5 747s at full power, the Merlin engines launch the rocket to space. The first and the second stages are connected by what's called the interstage. Falcon 9's second stage is powered by a single Merlin vacuum engine, nearly identical to the first stage engines, but modified to operate in the vacuum of space. It delivers Falcon 9's payload to the desired orbit. The second stage engine ignites for a few seconds after stage separation. At the top of the rocket is Dragon, which carries cargo in the spacecraft's pressurized capsule and in the unpressurized trunk. The Dragon spacecraft and trunk is just over 26 feet high and 12 feet in diameter. Dragon will connect to the space station's Harmony module. In May, the spacecraft will splash down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Baja, California, returning science experiments to Earth. Today, the launch countdown has proceeded per the timeline. Milestones already performed include collision avoidance with the Eastern Range, a checkout of the autonomous flight termination system, loading of RP-1 fuel began at T-minus 1 hour, 11 minutes, and the loading of liquid oxygen began at T-minus 35 minutes at 3:55 p.m. Launch teams received a weather briefing from the U.S. Air Force 45th Space Wing, who are providing insight into a whole host of weather-related details such as wind speed, cloud coverage, potential for thunderstorms and lightning in the surrounding area, and even solar weather, which launch teams need to know before committing to launch. The countdown is proceeding, and U.S. Air Force 45th Weather Squadron Officer Mike McAleenan has noted some anvil clouds that got about as close as 8 nautical miles to the launch site. However, that's produced no lightning at this time, so we remain go for weather, but we'll keep an eye on that as it develops throughout the launch countdown. But with that, we are still go for launch, with winds at about 10 to 15 miles per hour out of the east-southeast. Temperature is about 80 degrees. We're about 80% go for launch, which keeping us that extra 20% is flight through precipitation and the cumulus cloud rule. And with that, we'll go back to Tori McClendon. Tori?
Thanks, Josh. The 26-foot-tall Dragon trunk will carry about 2,000 pounds of unpressurized cargo to the station, meaning the cargo inside the trunk will be exposed to the expansive vacuum of space. The rest of the experiments inside the Dragon are pressurized with air to simulate the Earth's atmosphere. The Dragon spacecraft will spend about 1 month attached to the station before it returns to Earth. It will then splash down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Baja, California. The first stage booster on this Falcon 9 rocket has flown on a SpaceX mission before for CRS-12. Joining us now from Hawthorne, California, is SpaceX engineer Kate Tice to tell us more. Kate?
Hey everyone, my name is Kate Tice, and I'm a certification engineer here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. I'm standing on our mezzanine, which looks out over mission control, as you can see over my left shoulder. For today's mission, both the Falcon 9 rocket and the Dragon spacecraft you see at the launch pad have flown before. This is the second time we've flown a flight-proven Dragon spacecraft on top of a flight-proven rocket. The first time we achieved this double reuse combination was December of last year. The rocket you saw out on the pad previously flew on CRS-12 in August 2017. The Dragon spacecraft on today's mission was originally flown in April 2016 for CRS-8, which was the mission that led to our first successful drone ship landing. These days, it's pretty easy to spot a flown Falcon 9. We are no longer painting the vehicles after the rocket returns, so you can still see the markings from re-entry. With Dragon, however, it's much harder to tell because we have replaced the exterior thermal protection system, which is where the re-entry markings would be visible. But underneath that, it's essentially the same vehicle that delivered supplies to the station almost exactly 2 years ago today. At SpaceX, we believe reusability is the key to bringing down the cost of space access. Imagine if every time you flew from Los Angeles to New York City, the aircraft was thrown away after everyone deplanes. Your plane ticket would be really expensive and very few people would be able to afford to fly. Reusability is the key to changing that. Through reuse, we can dramatically reduce the cost of access to space, and currently, cost is the biggest barrier to large-scale human space exploration. A key part of this entire process is rapid reusability. We're really hoping to create a model that looks more like a commercial airline. The rockets land, we give them a quick once-over, and then send them back out on another mission. We're not there yet, but we're making huge strides and we're getting closer every day. Back to you, Tori.
Thanks, Kate. The Dragon cargo spacecraft launching today will deliver dozens of research experiments to the International Space Station. Among these include the Atmosphere Space Interactions Monitor, or ASIM, which is an Earth observation facility to study severe thunderstorms and their role in Earth's atmosphere and climate. The marrow study will look at the effect of microgravity on bone marrow. This research may lead to treatments that would enable safe human space exploration and better recovery from prolonged bed rest on Earth. The metabolic tracking study will test the metabolic impacts of drugs on a microgravity environment, which could lead to more effective and less expensive medicines. The Vegapons study seeks to understand how plants respond to microgravity and develop reliable vegetable production on on orbit for future long-duration missions. And the TechShot Multi-Use Variable Gravity Platform, or MVP. This facility produces artificial gravity that is used to conduct research with a wide variety of sample types, such as fruit flies, plants, protein crystals, and many others. As NASA plans for future missions to the Moon and Mars, we're working to improve our ability to grow food in space. The cargo on board today's mission includes a new system to grow plants on the International Space Station. Plants that can be harvested and returned to Earth for analysis. NASA's Marie Lewis joins us with one of the scientists behind this effort. Marie?
Thanks, Tori. Well, astronauts have been growing fresh greens on the International Space Station since 2015, but the experiment launching today will test a new way to deliver nutrients to those plants. Joining me now is NASA research scientist Howard Levine. And Howard, you've brought with you this module that you've designed. Can you explain to us what this is and how this works?
We call this PONS. It's the Passive Orbital Nutrient Delivery System. That's the first thing we always do. We come up with a good acronym. And essentially, there is what we call a plant cylinder, which will have the substrate and slow dissolving fertilizer pellets. There's capillary mats that will bring water up from this reservoir into the plant cylinder. Seeds will germinate on the top. We have this little cover to keep high humidity during germination. And once the plants are off and running, we remove this. And that's essentially it. It's fully passive. There's no electricity, no power, and we've had excellent results on Earth, and we're hoping to have the same results in space.
Okay, now I know I mentioned that we've been growing plants already for a couple of years at the space station. So what's been the problem so far in how those plants have been growing? I know some have been faring better than others, and how is this designed to solve that problem?
So we've been using these pillows, which are full of substrate and the slow dissolving fertilizer pellets, but the delivery of water from the pillows to the seeds and subsequently to the growing plants has been inconsistent. So sometimes the plants are getting too much water, sometimes they're not getting enough, and in either case it can disrupt growth. So this is designed to provide a more regular flow of water. It's an on-demand system, so as the plants are utilizing the water, more water is being replenished into the plant cylinder automatically but passively.
Okay. And so now, perhaps most importantly for somebody like me, I'm a big salad lover. How is this salad or these greens going to taste in comparison to the ones we could pick up at our local grocery store?
Well, it's going to be comparable. Although when you're in space, your taste buds are dulled to a certain degree. And in fact, that's why the astronauts are always asking for tangy food items, and we're looking into peppers, just so that it's something that they can actually sense better in space. But pretty comparable. In fact, some compounds like isoflavonoids in certain experiments have been shown to be expressed to a higher degree in space.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Howard. Tori, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Marie. Research
great.
conducted aboard the space station is helping to advance scientific knowledge across multiple disciplines such as Earth, space, physical, and biological sciences. And all of these studies are designed to benefit people like you and me. The space station also serves as the world's leading laboratory where cutting-edge research and technology continues to bring us closer to deep space exploration, meaning back to the moon and even to Mars. Among the teams supporting today's launch is NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, which is home of mission control for the International Space Station. Joining us now is NASA's Dan Hewitt. Dan?
Hey everybody, this is Dan Hewitt and I am in Mission Control Houston here at the Johnson Space Center with the Orbit 2 team behind me and somebody next to me who knows a thing or two about a Dragon flying to the spacecraft, Randy Bresnik, NASA astronaut and expedition commander, pretty recently on board the International Space Station. We're pretty much spectators here right now until Dragon arrives, but it's about to be a busy couple of weeks for the crew on board.
Very, very busy time, Dan, but exciting time. I mean, look at the fact that the first stage is going to launch the Dragon today. Was the same one that brought the Dragon up when I was on orbit just last fall. And that, flight-proven Dragon, flight-proven Falcon 9, that's amazing that we'll be able to do this and now start to lower the cost to things to orbit so we can put more stuff up there and eventually, hopefully, more people. And so the crew up there, they're really excited. They have been waiting for this. Both Nemo, who's M1, Norishige Kanai, and M2, Scott Maker Tingle. They were up there. And they arrived when there's already a Dragon attached. So they haven't seen the grapple and berthing part, but they have seen the ops within Dragon and the pack up and sending it home. And so this is the one part that they haven't seen yet. So this is exciting for them, 3.5 months into their increment to be doing something new. And so they've been, for the past couple weeks, been doing robotic sessions on the robotic trainer. They've been in there every day, doing the sessions with the ground team, but also on their own free time, getting a little extra few runs. And I know for when we had SpaceX 12 and SpaceX 13, the guys who were M1 and M2, it's like every spare moment you had, if you were flying by the robot simulator, you would just stop, fly a few runs to practice grappling, to keep your skills proficient, and then fly off. And so by the time the Dragon came, you'd have quite a few practices and be really sharp with your skills. But it is a team effort, so Norishige Kanai will be flying the robotic manipulator, but Scott Tingle will be off on the side, going through the procedures, making the ground calls, giving Norishige Kanai, Nemo, the ranges to the Dragon as it comes up. And what I think will be really interesting for these guys, having not seen one of these before, is that as it comes up throughout the rendezvous, it'll be going from day and night cycles because that happens every 45 minutes. And so you can see the Dragon really well over the ground, and then all of a sudden the night will come and you'll be looking at the red and green lights and the blinking white strobe light as it comes up and gets close. And so there's some really just beautiful opportunities to see the spacecraft when it comes up. And so they're excited, they're ready, and they're just waiting for hear the word that it actually launched, and then they'll know that it's getting real.
All right, well, an exciting couple of days, an exciting couple of weeks for the crew on board coming up. But for now, we're spectators. We're ready to see this thing go, so we'll send it back over to you down at Kennedy.
Thanks, Dan. We'll look forward to hearing more from you later on in the show. At T-minus 16 minutes and counting, let's go back to the control center for an update on today's launch. Josh?
Thank you, Tori. And if you're just joining us, I'm here at Hangar AE, not far from the launch site, Space Launch Complex 40, where the Falcon 9 will take off at 4:30:48 today toward the International Space Station. The crew of the space station awaits the arrival of Dragon on Wednesday, and teams on Earth are working hard to deliver. Adjacent to NASA's Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, SpaceX Launch Control Team is working with partners at SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne, California, and the International Space Station Mission Control Center in Houston, Texas, to oversee the launch of the Falcon 9 rocket. It's a team effort spanning the U.S. from the East Coast to the West Coast. We are at T-minus 15 minutes, 25 seconds and counting. Both liquid oxygen and kerosene are being loaded into the tanks. Upcoming milestones include preparations for engine chill, communication checks with the Eastern Range. The strong back that's standing next to the rocket will begin to attract to its launch position of 88.3 degrees, and the Falcon 9 and the Dragon will begin to move toward internal power. And with that, we'll now go back to Tori McClendon. Tori?
Thanks, Josh. With more exciting information on this mission, we'll go back to Marie Lewis and Cases. Marie?
Thanks, Tori. I have a special guest here with me now, Patrick O'Neill. He is the Marketing and Communications Manager for CASIS. Patrick, I know we love acronyms around here. So first of all, what is CASIS? And second of all, tell us about some of the things going on at the space station.
Sure. So CASIS stands for the Center for the Advancement of Science and Space, and we are responsible for managing all research on the International Space Station U.S. National Laboratory. The National Laboratory is responsible for promoting research that has Earth benefits on the space station. So we work with everyone from Fortune 500 companies, innovative startups, academic researchers, other government organizations, anybody who wants to use the space station for terrestrial benefit from a U.S. perspective. And I believe
It's just after 1:15 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, or 2015 Universal Coordinated Time, on Monday, April 2nd, and you are looking at a live shot of Space Launch Complex 40, where the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is about to launch our Dragon spacecraft, towing 5,800 pounds of cargo to the International Space Station. My name is John Federspiel, and I am a lead mechanical design engineer here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. I am thrilled to be here with you to cover our 14th cargo resupply services mission to the International Space Station. Today, for the second time ever, we are flying both a flight-proven first stage and a flight-proven Dragon. That means both the first stage and Dragon have gone to space before. And with T-minus 12 minutes and 30 seconds and counting, all systems are go at Cape Canaveral. As I mentioned previously, both our first stage and Dragon spacecraft have gone to space before. That Falcon 9 first stage, it looks a little bit sootier at the bottom there. That's because our refurbishment process does not involve us scrubbing that first stage to make it nice and clean. That first stage flew on August 17th, 2017 for our CRS-12 mission, whereas the Dragon spacecraft on top of the vehicle flew on April 8th, 2017 for our CRS-8 mission. Both Dragon and Falcon 9 were designed up front with reflight in mind, so the vehicle hardware is built to support multiple missions with minimal refurbishment in between. As I mentioned previously, the Dragon first stage looks sootier, whereas Dragon, as you see it on your screen, looks brand new. That's because we refurbished the thermal protection system, or TPS, on the exterior to give it that nice white brand spanking new look as you see it now. For today's mission, SpaceX does not plan to recover the first stage. Instead, we're going to be pushing the limits a bit on our return trajectory so that our first stage can collect additional data that will help inform our future reusability efforts. We are going to be performing a landing sequence out in the Atlantic Ocean to gather that data, but there's no drone ship in position for recovery. That means that you may hear some countdown callouts on the countdown net regarding first stage entry, but for our webcast, we will just be focusing on our primary mission. That will be the second stage's journey into orbit and its eventual deployment of Dragon as it makes its journey to the International Space Station. But T-minus 10 minutes and counting right now. The good news is we continue to be on track for an on-time launch, tracking no issues at the moment. This is a Dragon mission, which means we are constrained with an instantaneous launch window. What that means is Dragon and Falcon 9 must lift off at this T0 mark. We don't have an open window with which to recycle the countdown and go again. It's instantaneous because we're trying to time our launch to the point where the International Space Station will be just about directly overhead Cape Canaveral, and then Falcon 9 and Dragon will be basically trying to catch up to the space station with eventual capture at 4 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. The most significant portion of today's countdown started at the T-minus 70-minute mark, where our launch control team was pulled at Cape Canaveral to enter into the propellant loading sequence. Now, as you may recall, in order to make fire, you need three elements: fuel, oxygen, and an ignition source. Our fuel for Falcon 9 is RP1, that's refined kerosene. And as we're sitting right now, both our first and second stages are nearly full of RP1. We will continue to top them off up until about the T-minus 5-minute mark on that first stage. We also carry densified liquid oxygen that's cryogenically cooled. That's actually those clouds coming off the rocket. That's the liquid oxygen boiling off. Right now on the pad, we're sitting at nearly full of liquid oxygen on our first stage, and about 95% full, 90% full on our second stage. We will continue to load liquid oxygen up until about the T-minus 3-minute mark. We also load on helium on board both stages. That's what we keep the tanks pressurized with as we're emptying it of propellant. Dragon, meanwhile, ready to go. It began its auto sequence at T-minus 35 minutes. That's where it begins its coordinated timing. It's moving into internal power. It just transitioned that period right now. Everything looking good to go there. Range, also ready to go. Weather, looking pretty good. We were tracking some anvil clouds earlier, but it looks like any constraints that could affect today's launch will be actually after our T0 mark. Weather team is continuing to monitor these anvil clouds, but as of right now, no constraints for today's mission. So overall, we continue to be go from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. "11 years ago, Dragon was just a design on a piece of paper. But in 2010, SpaceX became the first private company to send a spacecraft to orbit and return it to Earth. 2 years later, in 2012, soon after I started at SpaceX, a Dragon became the first privately developed spacecraft to visit the ISS. Since then, we've made a total of 13 trips to the space station, and we're under contract with NASA for a total of 20 cargo resupply missions. We are currently flying cargo to the space station, but ultimately, we will fly astronauts on crew missions, with our first crew demo mission slated for later this year. Our Dragon mission today is conducted in close coordination between NASA Mission Control at Johnson Space Center, also known as JSC. And on your screen, you're looking at a live view of Mission Control at JSC in Houston, Texas. The team at JSC
SpaceX's 14th commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station will mark the first opportunity of 2018 to replenish this U.S. national laboratory in low Earth orbit with new and exciting research. Let's learn more about some of the featured investigations and facilities that are destined to station as part of this mission.
By power and connections for RP1,
490
liquid oxygen,
Biotech will
and
examine
helium will
anti-cancer
retract to the launch
therapeutics to
position
a novel
of
bioluminescent
88.3
tint.
degrees. You can see that strong back standing next to the Falcon 9 rocket now. At T-minus 3 minutes, within the last 3 minutes of the countdown, Stage 1 and Stage 2 liquid oxygen will be complete to flight levels. At T-minus 2 minutes 55 seconds, the Falcon 9 Stage 2 thrust vector control actuators will move the second stage Merlin vacuum engine to verify its ability to control the spacecraft in flight. At T-minus 2 minutes 45 seconds before launch, the strong back will reach its launch position, canted away from the rocket, again at an angle of 88.3 degrees. At T-minus 2 minutes, the Air Force Range Control Officer will confirm the physical safety of the launch area and eastern range, and the Falcon 9 will be verified to be on internal power. At T-minus 1 minute, 5 seconds, the autonomous flight termination system is verified for launch. At T-minus 1 minute before launch, the flight computer begins final pre-launch checks. Propellant tanks are pressurized to flight pressure, and both the Dragon spacecraft and Falcon 9 rocket are configured.
Vision-based navigation.
This mission provides an assortment of research on space station that will benefit life on Earth, and will also bring new facilities to the International Space Station to further enhance our capabilities in low Earth orbit. And we wish our partners at NASA, SpaceX, and all of our principal investigators the best of luck for a great year of research in 2018.
Follow at ISS_research on Twitter for more information about the science happening on station. Along with bringing cargo to the ISS, an equally important function of Dragon is to return back experiments. Dragon is the only operational spacecraft capable of returning significant amount of cargo to Earth. The good news is, Dragon has given us the thumbs up. Its vehicle is ready to go to space. And with just under 2 minutes and 40 seconds in today's mission, Falcon 9 has finished topping off its propellant loading. We've wiggled our engines, doing the thrust vector control checks on both our Merlin vacuum engines, as well as the 9 Merlin engines at the base, bringing us into T-minus 1 minute, where Falcon 9 will enter into startup. The rocket will take control of the countdown at the T-minus 1 minute mark. So we're gonna go silent over here on the webcast and let you listen in to these final 2 minutes of today's mission.
Stage 2, LOX load is closed out. Falcon 9 is on internal power. Vehicles in self-align. Gas closeouts.
AFTS is ready for launch.
Falcon 9 is in startup. Ground gas closeouts.
Dragon is in startup.
Launch directors go for launch.
Minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Go.
Falcon 9 is on its way to delivering the Dragon spacecraft for its 14th commercial resupply services mission. Coming up in about 10 seconds, we have max Q, maximum aerodynamic pressure. That's one of the highest stress states on the vehicle.
Vehicle is supersonic. vehicles experiencing maximum dynamic pressure.
Just passed through max Q. This first stage burn will last for about another minute and 10 seconds. As we leave Earth's atmosphere, you'll notice the exhaust plume gradually expanding.
And back engine chill.
And just heard the call out that the upper stage engine, the Merlin vacuum, has begun chilling in, similar to how we chill in the 9 Merlin engines before the initial liftoff of the Falcon 9. Now coming up in rapid succession, at about T plus 2 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll have MECO, or main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, followed by ignition of the upper stage engine. Let's watch.
Wait, MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back ignition.
And what you just saw there was a successful shutdown of the 9 Merlin engines of our first stage, followed by separation of our first stage from our second stage using 4 pneumatic actuators at the forward end of the stage. And then after that, you saw ignition of our upper stage engine. You may have noticed a piece of metal flying away from the engine. That's a stiffener ring that protects the larger Merlin vacuum nozzle on ascent. That's totally nominal. And on the left side of your screen there, that's actually the Dragon nose cone that it's popped off and is falling back to space. Dragon nose cone falling off, totally nominal. That's exactly what we want to see. We use that nose cone to protect the forward end of Dragon on ascent through the aerodynamic, the atmospheric drag we see. That's a good sign. That means we're outside of the atmosphere, so the forces on the forward end of the vehicle are significantly reduced. About 2 minutes into our second stage burn. If you're just joining us so far, the first stage had an on-time launch, just like we like it, a nominal ascent profile, good separation from our second stage. Now that first stage is performing an experimental landing maneuver. We're just gathering some data on this into the Atlantic Ocean. We do not have a drone ship out there in the Atlantic Ocean, so we are not covering this portion of the phase. Though you will probably hear some callouts in a few minutes on entry burn of the first stage. Since that's not our primary mission and we're not intending to recover that first stage, we will just be focusing on second stage right now. Coming into T plus 6 minutes, this second stage burn will last for about another 3 minutes. Our target, if you want to keep an eye, that speed, we're going to about 27,000 kilometers per hour. That's orbital velocity. Second stage's job is to get Dragon to orbit. First stage's job was primarily to get us out of the Earth's atmosphere. Second stage does its precise orbital maneuvering by using 2 thrust vector actuators. They're contained within that reflective blanket, and they allow us to adjust the engine's position, affecting its pitch and yaw. And then we have some nitrogen thrusters on the forward end that allow us to adjust the vehicle's roll. Power and trajectory continue to look good. Engine performance continues to be nominal, as we like around here.
Stage 1 AFTS has saved.
We are coming up shortly in about a minute here on SECO. That's a second stage engine cutoff. That's the point where the second stage in Dragon will be coasting. Dragon will then do a quick checkout, and then it will be deployed from the second stage about a minute after that point in time.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
About 15 seconds left into stage 2's burn.
Stage 2 AFTS has saved.
And we have shut down of the second stage engine.
Yes, you go.
You saw the speed tick up to about 27,000 kilometers per hour. We're going to coast here for about a minute, and then Dragon will separate.
Good. Stage 2 orbit insertion.
And we just also got the confirmation that we are in a good parking orbit of our second stage.
Acquisition of signal Newfoundland.
Coming up on Dragon deployment in about 15 seconds. And that is a view from the forward end of our second stage, looking inside Dragon's trunk as it separates from the second stage. Those are 3 of the science experiments we're taking up to the International Space Station. You can see those 3 different boxes inside. Those are 3 of the experiments we're bringing that will be attached on the outside of the International Space Station once we berth. It's about T plus 10 minutes and 50 seconds into today's mission. On the right side of your screen, you see Dragon gently separating away from our second stage. We are coming up on our solar array deployment in about a minute and a half. That's where the fairings that protect the solar arrays will be released. And then our solar arrays will be slowly rolled out like a bit of an accordion. And then they will begin their pointing maneuvers. Right now, Dragon itself is checking out its thrusters. We are priming up the thrusters to make sure we have control over the vehicle first. We want to make sure we have control over the vehicle before we deploy those solar arrays. If you're just tuning in, second stage and first stage put Dragon into a nominal trajectory. We are in a good parking orbit right now. You are looking at the Dragon spacecraft with Earth in the background, looking through at the camera on our second stage, on the forward end of our second stage. Second stage itself will perform a third burn maneuver, which will put it inside the Indian Ocean for disposal. While we wait, right now we're waiting for Dragon to unfold its solar arrays. Dragon does need its solar arrays in order to conduct its full mission. It is a 2-day journey to the International Space Station. We have capture coming up Wednesday at 4 a.m. Pacific time. Those white clouds you're seeing in the space, that's just some venting that we naturally do as we are in space. And coming up now, though, we're still waiting for solar array deployment. If you're just tuning in, Dragon had a nominal mission thus far. It looks like we're hearing some cheering, waiting to see the confirmation. There they are. Those are the solar arrays unfolding from Dragon. That's actually the back side of the solar arrays. You can see the wire harnesses that connect the different cells together. What Dragon will do now is make sure these solar arrays are working, and then at T+3 hours, our GNC bay door will open. That's where we begin the precise pointing and navigation systems to get ourselves on our way to the space station, after which point in time, we will conduct a number of height altitude and orbital adjustment burns, eventually leading to that capture on Wednesday. And so to recap, we had a perfectly nominal mission, as we like around here. Falcon 9 performed its job splendidly, delivered Dragon to a perfect parking orbit. Dragon has since unfolded its solar arrays. You see that live view from space. That's certainly my favorite view from space of Dragon missions, of our solar arrays with Earth in the background. So because we're at this point in time, we're going to conclude our coverage for today's mission. We would like to thank NASA for today's mission, the Range, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station for their support, the FAA as well for their support, and most importantly, you, the viewer, for tuning in. If you would like to come and join us, please check out spacex.com/careers. Our mission doesn't end here. There are many more days to come leading up to the berthing with the International Space Station. Capture will be at 4 a.m. on Wednesday. You can check out all of that coverage on NASA TV. But if you'd like to follow along with us, be sure to follow our social media, Instagram or Twitter, as well as SpaceX.com. We will keep you updated on the mission's progress. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Going to be getting the station ready. The team out in Hawthorne is going to be monitoring Dragon, and the crew, of course, on board is going to be getting ready for that Dragon to arrive and grapple. Now, Randy, it's got to be just absolutely surreal to look out the window and see something flying at you when you're on the space station.
It is, especially for Norshik and I and Scott Tingle, who've been out there for 3.5 months, to see something from Earth coming up to the space station. That's a really special time. And then knowing that all that training they've been doing will actually get put into practice. So they'll keep practicing on the robotic simulator over the next couple days until Wednesday, but they're ready to go. And Norshige will be very surprised when he sees that thing outside, just outside the grapple envelope of the arm, and how smooth and steady the vehicle is. Because it's a lot more smooth and steady than we do have in training, because we go ahead and train to the worst case, and we fortunately are able to have a vehicle that flies better than that. And so then, once we get it at birth, they'll hand it off to the robotics experts here in Mission Control who will actually do the berthing and fly the robotic arm. And then the crew's waiting to where we start doing the leak checks. And so in between this Dragon vehicle and station, there's the vestibule where we have to make sure that area doesn't have any leaks with the seals around both sides so that we can then open the hatches. That's the exciting because then once you open the hatches, that's when the magic starts for the next month. They just came off a very busy, successful EVA, had a day, breather over the weekend, and now we're right back into Dragon Ops. But it's also, that's why we're there. There's a ton of science on the Dragon that will come up with Dragon, go back with Dragon, and also a ton of science they've been doing in between. They'll actually go back down on Dragon as well. And so they'll unload that, science stuff, and then all the cargo and tons of cargo that will be put on the station, the clothes, the food, anything else that is needed. They'll be unloading that, and then taking all the things that are just coming back to Earth they've been saving up and stowing away in all the different spots on station, loading that up as well. And the best part, the exciting part, other than seeing something from Earth that's coming up to join them, is that on board, finally there's something for them. Each crew member has care packages that their families put together, and so that's an exciting time to have something from the people you love down on Earth being sent up to you with a special package. There's fresh food. There's other care packages with additional food up there. That, we had a pizza come up on one of our cargo vehicles. That just, man, that pizza making, best pizza I have ever had, just because it was so different in texture and taste and anything we had up there for those 3.5 months. So again, very exciting time, but also hugely, hugely busy. They'll be going nonstop for the next 4 weeks, but it's doing the hardcore science and stuff that station as the world-renowned orbiting laboratory is there for. And so it's a really, really exciting time for them, and I bet they're going to have a really good time on Wednesday doing that grapple.
All right, well, first step's going to be Dragon getting there. So, again, it's going to be flying over the next couple of hours, arriving Wednesday morning. We'll be back here in Mission Control Houston when that occurs. So be sure to tune back in as we get ready to snag a Dragon out of outer space. But that'll do it for us here in Houston. We'll send it back to you, Tori, down at Kennedy.
Thanks, Dan. This concludes our live coverage of the launch of Falcon 9 and Dragon for NASA's CRS-14 mission. For more information about the International Space Station, visit www.nasa.gov/station. For more information on the mission, visit www.nasa.gov/SpaceX. And don't forget to tune in for the post-launch news conference on NASA television at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Tori McClendon. From the team here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, thank you for joining us. We will now leave you with replays of the launch.
Activated at T-minus 18 seconds.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9, 8,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. And the liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket and the Dragon spacecraft, packed with science and supplies for the International Space Station, humanity's home in low Earth orbit. And the Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. SpaceX